My name is Jerome Ferry. My cameraman is Alan Eggers. We are doing a video interview with a George Henry, a lifelong Cedar Rapids photographer and a whitewater boatman for many years. George, can you tell us when you were born and where you were born?
I was born here in Cedar Rapids in 1923.
Who was your parents?
Well, my dad was best known as High Henry, who was general manager of the Cedar Rapids Ball Club here, and my mother was his wife.
And did you have any brothers and sisters, George?
I had one sister who also grew up in Cedar Rapids and is now in Seattle.
Mm-hmm. Did you have a happy childhood?
Oh, of course.
There's a lot of interesting things to do as a kid.
Oh, sure, right. I mean, you just did the kids thing back when you were a kid, and as you got older, you did the older things as you grew up.
Did you spend any time near the river, around the river, fishing or anything?
Not any closer than 19th Street.
What high school did you go to, George?
Went to Franklin High School. Started out at Johnson School, though, and my kids started out at Johnson School, and then, of course, after we left, they felt it was worthwhile that they should build a new school because we'd kind of worn it out, and so they went to McKinley, though, and I went over to Franklin when I was growing up, and that's when Franklin had a junior high on 20th Street as it is now, and as I was going there, they were building the new addition, and so consequently they had the senior high there when I was able to graduate from junior high, and so I stayed right there at Franklin's first junior high and then senior high.
Did you have any interest in aviation when you were real young?
No more than the normal kid. It's nice to fly, but I didn't really have any great desire to, I have to go fly. It was just something that happened later on.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to ask you, the Depression era, how old would you have been during the Depression? Did it affect your dad or your dad's business? Or?
Well, it certainly did. He lost all his money. And again, though, I didn't know we were poor. And we got along just fine. I mean, the Depression came and went, and we went on as normal, and we were not told that we were poor and that we had to get along on less, and we got along great.
Mm-hmm. I know you were a lifelong photographer. When did you first become interested or started taking photographs?
Oh, as I was growing up, I had a little folding Kodak camera, and you'd try to figure out whether you're going to cut the head off or whatever you did with those earlier cameras, and as I got into high school, it was fun. Kind of would get a camera that I could kind of play with in the classroom and so forth. And of course, at that time they didn't have any they had rangefinders, but they didn't have anything that you could focus with. And so consequently, you would guess how far it was, and a good share of your pictures were out of focus. But yeah, we had somebody in class that would and take my film home and bring me back prints, but really no great, huge desire to be a photographer or anything.
And then you started school at Cole College?
Yes, after I graduated from Franklin, graduated mid-year, January of 1941, and so went down to Cole, because I could start there at mid-year, and did. And then went there the following year. But I think it was very interesting. When I was down at Cole, I was in ROTC, and World War II came along, and of course they had the infantry detachment there, and it was absolutely required that we be there and participate. And the summer of 1941, I told them that no, I was not going to take summer school. And they said, well, if you can't take summer school, you can't be in our program. And I said, that's really too bad. So I went down to Des Moines and enlisted in the Air Corps. And that's the way I became connected with the airplane and Air Corps.
A lot of people that we've interviewed that was in your age group, they took their training through Cole out at Hunter Airport, and you evidently didn't get on in.
No, I went to James Milliken in Decatur, Illinois, and they had the same type of thing at Decatur as Cole had here. And so consequently, we went out there and we got 10 hours in I'm not sure which airplane it was, whether it was a Cub or what, but anyway, we did get 10 hours just to see if we could go up and fly or be there. But anyway, that's where I got my first taste of being up in the air.
Did you choose to be a pilot, or did they tell you were going to be a pilot?
Well, I think everybody that goes in chooses to be a pilot, and the people that don't have the eyesight or the hearing or some other maybe minor disability, and they go to be navigators or bombardiers. You have to have, they give you tests and they tell you, hey, I know you'd like to be a pilot, however. But I was very lucky, and I did have the coordination, the eyesight, and so forth, and I did become one.
So what did you end up flying in the military?
I ended up flying the B-24 Liberator bomber.
And did you serve overseas?
I went over to Italy, yes. And war ended when I was over there in Italy. I'd flown, I don't know, in the high 20s or someplace in there as far as missions go.
What was the purpose of your missions? Were these bombing missions or strafing missions, or?
They were all bombing missions. We went. I don't remember even what my first mission was, but I do know that when you start out and you start out in a squadron, there are 10 people or 10 planes in the squad, and you've got 3 and 3 and 3, and then tail end Charlie flying down below the tail gunner of the last plane. And so consequently, when I started out, I was in 9th position. So that's 3, 6, 9, and I was there. And that's where I started. That's where I was in my first mission, and that's where I was in my second mission. And then my third mission was very memorable. Went over and we flew over Graz, and they had just developed a radar jamming device. And we flew over Graz, and it was nice and sunny and bright and so forth. And we flew over and with our radar jamming device and jammed their radar, and they didn't have flak that even came any place close to us. And said, oh boy, what a deal. We got this war won. The next day we went back to Graz, and it was all cloudy and so forth. And we flew in, and all of a sudden, as we were running on our target, there was a bomb burst or a flak burst about 100 feet off our right wingtip. And I thought, ooh, it may be harder after all. And what they had done, they had figured out what we had, and they now were homing in on our radar jamming device. Well, we got that ironed out, but nevertheless, and in fact, on that mission, we missed our target on the first run and flew around, and planes were taking off and going out there, been hit and so forth. And so we came around, we had 9 planes on our first run, we had 4 planes on our second run, and I had moved up from ninth place into 3rd place. And so we made the bomb run with 4 planes, and just after we dropped our bombs, so the lead plane got a direct hit in the bomb bay. All it did was knock all these radio equipment out to the side of the plane, and it flew on. But anyway, we flew back in formation with no radio contact or anything. But anyway, from that time on, then I flew in number 3 position, and that's where I finished the war.
What were some of your targets that you were?
A lot of our targets were over in Austria. We hit Vienna. I think Vienna was the one we hated most, because for about 100 miles out we could see the flak over the city. And we knew there was absolutely no way we could fly through that flak and drop our bombs and come back. And the entire Air Force would hit Vienna when we went. And so we'd all the different squadrons and so forth would be there at different times, at different altitudes and so forth, and you had to hit your target within a period of 3 minutes from when you were supposed to. Otherwise you had to bring your bombs back, because otherwise you might be dropping your bombs on some other formation underneath you.
What was in Vienna that they were so adamant about wiping out?
Oh, it'd be like New York City or a big city that everything is manufactured there. And so consequently we'd had railroad yards and ammunition factory and anything else that had to do with the war effort. So consequently it was spread out and all over the place, and we'd go in and try to bomb it.
Did your plane ever get hit with any flak? Or
We were very lucky. We got hit with flak a little, just fragments though. A few little flak holes in our fuselage or in our wings and so forth. Nothing that ever bothered us. When we were flying towards the end of the war, when we were flying in northern Italy, we did have an 88 millimeter shell go through our wing between the inboard engine and the fuselage, and just left a nice big hole in there in our wing. Didn't touch a thing, just went through, went a little ping.
did your crew that you were with, did you spend quite a bit of time together? Did you have the opportunity to spend quite a bit of, you said you were in Italy, how many years or over there?
Well, we were in Italy probably 6 months or so. But yeah, the crew, of course, we flew together and we were really very good friends. I had a very good crew, very friendly crew, and I think probably all the crews probably had a inner mix that was similar to ours, in that I was just familiar with our crew.
Did you have any, did you stay close to them over the years, or?
Well, we have gradually lost contact. I am hoping to get together for a reunion here in the not too far distant future. I know that 2 of our crew have died, and I haven't made contact with any of them in the past year or so. So consequently, other people might have passed away, but they were all good people, and it was kind of fun. I took a trip with one of them, my top turret gunner, down through Mexico after the war was over, and we drove an old 36 Dodge panel truck and went down through Mexico, and people would ask us, well, where have you been? And we'd tell them, and say, no, not in that car, you can't go there. And when we came back, well, just as we were coming back across the border, well, our front bumper finally dropped off. And so anyway, we had a rack up on top of the car, and we took our front bumper with the license plate and wired it to the top of our car, and that's the way we came home. And also, the roads were not the greatest right after World War II. And on the way down, we'd blown the engine, and they fixed it. So consequently, we went down into Mexico and all the way back, not over 35 miles an hour, make sure that our car got back. And it did get back, but you'd be surprised how long it is to go from Mexico City up to Lake Okoboji, where we were heading at 35 miles an hour. We'd watch the sun go down, and we'd watch the sun come out, the sun go down, and the sun come up. You know, but anyway, we finally got there.
When did you, so when were you discharged from the military, George?
I was discharged from the military shortly after the wars ended, both the European and the Pacific. Now they flew back from Italy, and actually flew back from Italy in the airplane I took my first mission in, which just came to mind as number 64, one of the older airplanes, and we flew them all back, landed them, and then they took them over and junked them. But then we were sent up to Sioux Falls for discharge, and went up there. Well, then the Pacific War ended, and shortly thereafter we were discharged.
How old were you this time, George?
When I landed in Italy, I celebrated my 21st birthday in Italy. Just landed there.
When you were in service for 3 years, was thoughts going through your mind as to what you'd like to do with life when the war was over with?
Not in the least. Now, you were busy doing what you needed to do there, and I don't think anybody had any thoughts at all about what they were going to do after the war. First was just finish the war, and then I guess worry about what was going to happen at that time. We never anticipated the end of the war. We knew it was going to happen, but we just never participated in that thinking. We just kept doing what we were scheduled to do each day, And when the war ended, we were obviously overjoyed.
When you started college at Cole, did you go back to Cole then after you got out of the military?
Yes, I went back to Cole, came back and went back to Cole in 1947 and graduated in 49.
Did you, when you come back to Cole, did you have in mind anything, what you may want to do with your life, or did you already thinking about photography?
No, I had no idea what I was going to do with my life. I started shooting pictures down at Cole for the yearbook and so forth, and got a pretty good camera, and because you had a good camera, you took pretty good pictures, and shot a lot of them. So, as I say, I started shooting pictures about 1947 down there, and I'm still shooting pictures down there at Cole in 2001.
Did you shoot a lot of pictures throughout the city for private individuals' weddings and different functions?
Yes, when I was starting, I shot a lot of around the city, basically for whatever anybody wanted me to shoot, whether it be their 6-month-old child or shooting an aerial picture, which at that time I flew out of Hunter Airport. But
In taking photographs, you mean that? Did somebody contract you to take photos?
Yes, I mean, I've always done photos out of contract. They have told me what they want, and then I will go and do that. Almost never do I shoot pictures on speculation.
So you would go out to Hunter Airport, and a pilot would take you up and did you take farm photos or factory photos?
Oh, they whatever anybody would want me to do. Maybe an accident intersection, or a piece of ground that they were going to build on, or maybe a picture of the city, or a picture of a building downtown or something, and would go down and shoot that. And I would call up Hunter Airport at that time, and they had a high-wing plane. Again, I'm not sure of the make, but anyway, I'd say I'm coming out, and they would take the door off for me, and little 2-seater, and I would sit over in the passenger seat and strap myself in and have the door off, and then I would lean out just to make sure that the safety belt was working. And then away we'd go, and I'd lean out, and we'd take pictures, and they'd bring me back down.
Were you a photographer that took pictures of any interesting thing you've seen in your spare time, or did you pretty much do it when somebody hired you?
Basically, when people hired me. Going back and thinking back about what happened, I probably might do it a little bit differently now, but at that time, everything was, they would tell me what to do, and I'd go do it. And I've got some pictures, sure, that are of interest in the city, just basically because of the things that I shot were of interest to others, besides the people having them shot. But basically, everything was shot on contract.
Like all the photos that you took at Cole College throughout your school years, was those for your personal enjoyment, or were you under their employee?
Well, at that time,
How did you become so familiar with George Henry and his? Because they seen you taking pictures all the time, or
because I was there when people came, and I was there when they graduated, and I'm still there when they come back 50 years later. So, but having to do with the yearbook meant that I was at the various sundry functions that went on, whether flunk day or athletic events or anything that had to do that would make pictures, I was there. And so consequently, I have a very, very excellent record of the things that happened at Cole, especially for 10 or 15 years after I graduated, because I continued shooting for the yearbook, and I have a tremendous amount of pictures shot at that time.
If you were to take a wild guess, how many pictures would you think you took in your lifetime?
I shot probably 100,000 for Cole, of which, in the process of putting a book together, I separated those from the other pictures that I had taken for other people around the city and so forth. But I would say probably twice probably a couple 100,000. So I've got a lot of negatives floating around.
Did you keep track of all your negatives over the years?
I still have them all.
You still have them all?
Yep.
Did you ever think of putting them on a disc or?
They're, I don't have that much ambition. I did go through this 100,000 though to come up with roughly 100 or 1,000 that appeared in this cool book that came out last fall.
When you started, you come back from the military and you started back to school, and then did you just start taking pictures shortly after that? And at what point in time did you think that you could possibly make a living at this?
After I graduated from Co.
After you graduated?
Right, I didn't have any specific thing in mind when I was going through Co. Except I just got more and more interested in photography, and so consequently when I got out I had a small trade built up and just expanded from there.
Did you, what, you said you were taking pictures at Co for 50 years?
Yes.
Tell us some of the differences in lifestyle or the way society has changed.
Well, the people that went to Co, the kids, basically went through as lifestyle around them was. When things were easygoing, the kids at school were easygoing. When the Vietnam War was going on, they were somewhat radical. When that was over, they just kind of reflected the attitude of the people around them. However, when you would get those kids aside, when they weren't in a group, you discover kids were pretty much like the kids are today, all the way through. They had the same thoughts, the same desires, and so forth. Except when they were in the group, they acted out a little bit more.
So there was always a lot of peer pressure, no matter what
Always
generation
a lot of peer
they
pressure,
were.
yes.
What were some of the memorial occasions that stuck in your mind that you truly enjoyed covering? Any come to mind? Any important people or gala events? Or?
Well, yeah, I guess whenever you were assigned to do something, at that time the thing that you were assigned to do was uppermost in your mind. I don't ever remember I just couldn't wait to get out and shoot a picture of these people or this thing or so forth. It was just a matter of going there, and when you were there, you enjoyed it. You just entered into it, you became a part of the scene, and recorded what you saw, and as you recorded what you saw, you anticipated what was going to happen and tried to be there when that would happen. Evidently,
you become a fixture on campus as far as Cole College was concerned. Any event that went on, they knew you would be recording it through taking photographs, and you were on call all the time with...
Yes, they would call me. They, when things would happen, they would tell me that those things were going to happen. They'd tell me where they're going to happen. Most of the time they would desire pictures of that happening, and so consequently I would be there and get those pictures.
Did you have a studio or a place of business?
I've always worked out of my home.
Out of your home?
Out of my home, yeah.
Always have.
Always with the dark room in the basement, and in shooting black and white film, and I'm still shooting. Most of my stuff is still black and white.
Really?
You were able to control what you shoot and how you shoot it and how you develop it and how you print it by yourself.
How many cameras do you suppose you went through in your lifetime?
Went through or owned?
Both. Wore out, owned, went through.
I have no idea, but I probably got 30 downstairs. Yeah.
Did you ever literally wear any out, or is
Oh, sure, they wore out, and some of the cameras I'm using today are semi-worn out. I'm still using cameras, the twin lens Rolleiflex, of which they haven't made in 35 years. And that's still one of my prime cameras. But I've got somebody that can fix them, and so that does help.
In taking black and white pictures, do you feel that some of the older cameras probably still have better quality than the ones they make today? Or?
No, The cameras,
Technology has progressed in
the technology certainly has progressed. There's no question about it. However, today they do not make a camera that will do what I want quite as good as the ones that they made back when with the cameras I'm using. The technology has gotten much better, but I like the larger format, the 2 1/4 film, and most of your development has been towards the 35 millimeter, which I use on occasion, and it's marvelous equipment and very technical, and people don't have to know anything about photography to be able to shoot with them. They still have to see what they shoot, but nevertheless, the cameras, you can just point them, they'll focus for you, they'll expose for you, you have to push the trigger, but then that winds the film for you, and when you get through the roll of film, it winds it back for you for you to take to the processor. So consequently, it's very, very automated, and I like those cameras. I've got a couple of them myself, and I use them.
I noticed a photo, yes, I'm sitting on the floor there, Marvin Cohn behind you.
Yes.
Could you show that to us?
Oh, sure, right.
And tell us the story behind it?
Okay, right.
If we get the right angle on it.
Is this pretty close?
Can you move it
This way?
other way, George?
Other way, okay.
A bit more. That's pretty good right there.
And got her there?
Yep, I got it.
Okay. Yeah, this is a picture. I had the good fortune to know Marvin Cohn. I took class under him for 4 years in drawing. And anyway, in one of the things I did, they wanted to do a series on Marvin Cohn and Ben Peterson. So Marvin Cohn was the first one, and they sent me over to his home. And of course, he was expecting me, and I was, at that time, good friends with Marvin. And this is his home studio on 5th Avenue. And so we went in and shot an awful lot of nice photos at that time. And Marvin was standing there looking out the window, and this little reflection in the window there showing him, and his wife was standing in the kitchen. And I said, "Winifred, come here, quick, stand by the Marvin." And she went over and stood by him, and I shot the picture. And by the time I had rolled the film forward to shoot another picture, the shadow had broken into the frame of the doorway there. And when I shot another picture, within a second, this picture was gone. And so it just barely got it. But this is one of the favorites of many people that I have, and it is a nice picture.
Very nice. And you have a book of 50 years of photos.
Right.
Is this something that Cole College had published?
This is a book, I mentioned that I had 100,000 negatives downstairs that I went through. And anyway, in the process of going through those, I categorized them, I renumbered them, I put as I said, starting back in the late 40s, or about 47, so forth, put all these aside that were shot from Coe College, went through, made proof books, and categorized what I had shot over the 50 years, then went through those. I proofed about 60 to 70,000 negatives, and went through those negatives, picked out the prints I wanted to make, made about 1,500 prints, of which about 1,000 ended up in this book. And so consequently, some of the cream of the crop, the stuff that I shot in here, is really quite good. In fact, the picture of Marvin Cohn that you just saw would be here in this book. Pictures of Ben Peterson, the professors that went, the kids that went, the things that happened, the athletic events, the famous people that came, the presidents, the tomfoolery, the whole bit. It's here in the book, and covered in about. There's about 1,000 pictures in here, taken from about 100,000 that I had.
When you got out of the military, George, did you get married, or did you get married after you went to college, or back to college, or?
Well, obviously I was not married before I went to the military, so I got married afterwards. But I didn't get married until 1956.
56?
Right. Mm-hmm. And so I had a little chance to wander around and travel, and in the summertime I'd go out and shoot pictures out in the West. And in 1956 I got married, which is the same year I started running the river.
Did you marry a local girl?
She was not really local, somebody that I met locally, yes. It was somebody out of northeastern Iowa, a little town of Farmersburg. But she came down and she was on television in one of the local stations here, way back when television was live, and she was the fill-in for almost everybody, anything from the dishwasher to the main person on the station. So, but anyway, that's where I met her, and we got married and had 2 wonderful kids.
What was her name?
It was May Little.
Little. When you come back, you were under contract with Cole for taking all the pictures, and then when the school year was over at Cole, did your business slack off your photo?
Actually, I was never under contract, and I'm still not under contract. I'm just here, and they had me shoot pictures for them. But yes, in the summertime, when we didn't have the going to school or classes down there, at that time summer school basically was non-existent. So consequently, school ended commencement and started again in the fall. And I figured as long as Cole could take 3 months off, I could take 3 months off, and I'm still doing it.
What did you do during your 3 months?
As I said, went to out to the west, shot pictures and so forth, and again in 1956 I became acquainted with river running, took a trip as a passenger, and after being a passenger for a trip, I was then a full-fledged boatman, and my next trip down the following day was as a boatman on the oars, with no knowledge at all of the river, no knowledge of how to operate with current and so forth, and the passengers never knew it.
How did this happen? Did they run short of help, or?
Yeah, when I got back in 1956, river running was not a science. It was still in the exploratory stage, and there were almost no river companies. And when I got through with the trip as a passenger, which was a 6-day trip down the Green River, they needed 2 more boatmen. As I say, my qualification was I was there. And they found me, and they found one other person out of Salt Lake City that they had come down and run. So anyway, that was the extent of my training.
And this went on for how many years?
It went on for 45 years.
45
Right,
years.
yes.
You went back every year.
Right, yes,
And they relied on you probably that you were coming back, you're a good employee, and you must have been had quite a close relationship with it. Who was this company out there that?
This was Hatch River Expeditions, one of the original companies that ran rivers. Bus Hatch started them back in 1949 is when he developed the trips as a commercial venture, but it took his first commercial venture, so-called anyway, in 1929 when somebody asked him to take them down the river, and so he said, okay, you furnish the food, and I will take you down, and that was his first trip back in 1929.
When you, that first trip, that 6-day trip you took, that was probably not one of the things going through your head that you'd be a boatman.
Oh, good
for
heavens,
the next
no.
40 years.
No, I thought, when I took the trip, though, that was one of the most enjoyable things I had done, and I thought, yeah, I'd like to do this again. When I went down, I did have a movie camera with me, and I did shoot a movie at that time. And so when I got through, well, I went home and I thought, yeah, I'd like to do that again next year. So I wrote them and I said, I would like to come out and work for you next year. And they wrote back and said, no thanks, we have plenty of boatmen. And so I wrote them again and said, and if I can't row a boat next year, can I come back and shoot another movie? And they wrote back and said, we now need another boatman, come back. So anyway, that was in 1957. I went back the next year and became established at that time. And they found out that I could run the river and enjoyed it and was good with people, and so that was really one of the highlights of things that I've done in my life.
This This movie you shot, George, was
Yes.
this for your personal satisfaction?
Yes,
or
this is
was-
just for my own personal satisfaction. It's like you now take your camcorder or video or camera or whatever it is and take it on a vacation with you and shoot the mountains and the hills and the animals and the people and so forth. That's basically what I was doing, except I was going down the river, and so I was recording it.
In those many years that you did this, you must have run across a wide variety of people from every walk of life, from every country, probably. That
I certainly did, yes. The people that I came, well, obviously the main people that you had were normal people that would come from the cities around the country. They would be businessmen and farmers and ranchers and lawyers and doctors and bankers and all those people that wanted to take a vacation. And back when I started, it was a little bit more of an adventure than it is today, because at that time you really weren't exactly sure what was going to happen, and there was not the knowledge of the people taking the trips that there is now, saying that, hey, this is going to be all safe and everything is planned and so forth, and we have marvelous, skilled people doing it. It just never came up. So they would go and they would get on the river, and getting on the river, well, they would basically take potluck with, they didn't know anything about the boatman, and they didn't know anything about the situation. The people that went down the river kind of went along as baggage, really. The boatmen were people that were able to take a week off of work. They were not skilled. They were not skilled with people. They were not skilled in boating. They were not skilled in anything, with the exception that they had a week free and could go down the river. And so there was not the camaraderie with the people and the boatmen then that there is today, because now when you go down with the people, they become your friends. You are with them. You enjoy them. They enjoy you. And when you get through with the trip, well, it's been a very, very memorable trip, both for the boatmen and for the passengers.
kind of like a tour bus driver and over the road.
Yeah, even more so, because here you eat with them, you sleep with them, you feed them, you're in constant contact with them and get to know them very well.
In general, was the largest percentage of people good people, enjoyable type people, or did you run into quite a few people who probably wished they hadn't went on the trip?
No, I think as in anything else, those people weed themselves out. They are not people that want to go down the river. They want to be doing something else. And so the people that go down the river are normally a very, very good line of people. Once in a while you run into somebody that shouldn't have gone, but nevertheless, most of them are people that you would love to have friends. And of course, along that situation, you mentioned famous people. Yes, the people whose names you do know. I had the real good fortune. I took Bob Kennedy down 3 times, and I took Art Buchwald and John Glenn, and Jim Whitaker, the mountain climber, Andy Williams, a number of others whose name, just because when you just mention, you know who they are. But most of the people were people like you and me that went and took the trip as a little bit of excitement and vacation and so forth. The Kennedys were a little bit different, even though they were treated exactly the same on the river, and they had a wonderful time.
Did you feel that they wanted to be treated just like anybody else?
And they did. And we treated them just like anybody else. Maybe we kowtowed to them just a little bit more than the normal, but nevertheless, we treated them, we fed them the same thing we fed everybody else, and they washed their own plates, and they didn't throw garbage around, and the whole bit. So, and they enjoyed it. They went down 3 years in a row, and then Bob was killed, and then there was a year off that nobody went, and the following year, Ted went down and took a couple of his friends, John Tunney and John Culver, who were his friends, and Etha came with her group of friends, with Jim Whitaker and those, and they brought their kids. One of them had his 5th birthday on that trip, but they, and that was the last trip they took with us back in 1969.
When you first started out, George, did they send somebody along with you? They didn't send you out alone, did you?
Well, no, we went we had a number of boats that would go down at the same time.
Okay.
And there was no restriction as the number of boats that could go. And some of the time before they put restrictions on, at this time, an absolute maximum trip is 25 people. Back then, I think the biggest group I ever took was 79. And then we had, I think, 8 or 9 large boats. And when I say large boats, they were 33 feet long and weighed about 1,000 pounds empty, and you get them loaded up with people and duffel, and the rest they were about a couple of tons anyway. And so they were heavy and awkward and so forth. The landing craft of World War II is what we ended up with. First boats I trained on and so forth were made out from pontoon bridges from World War II. So consequently, when we first started, we grabbed what we grabbed, made it runnable, figured out how we could row them or steer them and so forth, and then went down the river in them. Now the boats are manufactured for river running, and they're so much easier and so much more fun in a different way. Back then you had to improvise, and you enjoyed doing that.
You put together a book, didn't you?
I did. I put together a book. Yeah, called "Row Away from the Rocks," and interesting. When I first was out there and went to take my first trip as a boatman, they said, "Well, you won't have any trouble." It said it's all downhill. Just row away from the rocks. And so consequently, that had to be the name of my boat or my book. And the interesting part of that is that when I put together this book and made the title of it, "Row Away from the Rocks," I had no idea what the first letter of the title spelled until somebody 6 months later told me, "You know what that spells?" And I said, "No, what does it spell?" And it spelled R-A-F-T-R, rafter, which is one of those things that cannot possibly happen, but did. So the name of my book is also in the first letter of each of the first words. It's very interesting.
George, in all of these trips you made down the river, was each trip, as far as the river itself, was this something you you thought you were becoming quite good at as the more trips you made, or was every trip different because of Mother Nature in the river?
Well, if you drive to Iowa City, the first time down you have to look at the road and so forth, but you never stop looking at the road every time you drive into Iowa City. Sometimes you know where the curves are going to come up, you know where there might be a pothole, you know those things, but you never take your eyes off the road. It's the same way with the river. The river is the road that takes you down through the canyons, and so consequently anything can happen. There could be an extra rock, maybe something you don't see, you bump into, that turns your boat. This often happens in rapids, that in the different height of the water, different rocks are exposed. So consequently, as you go down the rapids, you have to make a new path each time you go. Nothing is never quite the same.
Was there any times you didn't go because of high water, because of runoff or flash floods or anything? Or did you pretty much go whatever conditions there was in?
We went at all times. When the water was extremely low, we went, or when the water was extremely high, we went.
Was there quite a bit of difference in the level of thrill between real high water and low water?
A different type of trip. In low water, we would come to a rapids, and there'd be a tremendous amount of rocks showing. And so consequently, as far as skill goes, probably you needed more skill to navigate a rock-strewn rapid than you did water when the water was higher and those rocks were covered. Except when the water got very high, then some of those rapids became extremely dangerous, and you had to run them just exactly right, or again, you could get into trouble.
When you were, in all of these years you were rafting out there, did you run across quite a few Cedar Rapids people that you knew that come out?
Well, basically they came out because they knew me, and they're at the end of the last 7 or 8 years, actually I would pick trips that people would go with me, and then I would sign up for those trips, and then people would call me, and I would put them on these trips. So consequently, they would be with me on these trips. But I figure there were probably at least 2,500 people from the Cedar Rapids area that had been down with me over the years. So consequently, I would go someplace, and these 30 and 40-year-olds will come up to me and say, "Do you remember when?" And I'll say, "Tell me about it." And normally on each trip there would be something that would happen. We would knock a hole in the bottom of the boat, or we would run into something. It would be a rainstorm or something. They'd say, "Remember that happened in our trip?" And I said, "I remember that happening. I don't remember that you were on the trip, but yes, I remember that thing happening."
Did you have any true disasters that nothing went right?
No, I guess, what is a disaster? I guess if a disaster, I consider anything, if you drown somebody, that's a disaster. If you tip a boat over, no, that's not a disaster, but it's very memorable for the people on the trip. It just so happens in the 45 years I never did that to tip a boat over.
Really?
But and really there were times when it could have happened, but I lucked out and it didn't happen. The people, only 3 times did I ever have people that needed to go out. One time on shore, one of the young men that I was with walked into a branch and cut the corner of his eye, and we did happen to have a couple of nurses along, and they took and scrubbed up and bandaged the eye and so forth, and I actually took him out. When you take somebody out, it's not just around the corner or by car or anything. You had to take them out by boat and find a place where a car can get in and take them out. You can do it, but it's normally a whole day's job. And anyway, we got him in, and the doctor checked the eye, and the eye was fine, and everything had been done that needed to be done. And so we did. That was one time. Another time we were with a family who was going down, and in one of the rapids, a wife lost her balance in the boat and fell into her husband's leg and broke the leg. It just so happened on that particular boat, somebody goes around and shows doctors how to set bones. So before he was even off the rapids, there was an air splint on that leg, and we took that person out, and the family went out and was able to join the trip the next day, came back and went on with the trip. And the other time, somebody that probably should not have been on the trip in the first place said, "I have kind of a sore spot. Maybe I have appendicitis." Well, anyway, she did not have appendicitis, but if she had had appendicitis and we hadn't taken her out and she died, it would have been one of those things. So anyway, we took her out, and everything was fine, but there was no problem.
Yeah. When you fixed meals, I'm sure you were responsible for all of that. Did you find that people like pitch in and help you prepare a meal, or was it left pretty much up to yourself?
Well, people often offered to pitch in and help. The problem was, of course, they had no idea what to do, and we didn't know what to tell them to do because it was all different than they would do in the kitchen. So
it was easier to do it yourself.
It's much easier to do it ourselves, which we did. We cooked in big grates and grills and Dutch ovens and big coffee pot and the whole thing, and we boiled water for the dishes, and anyway, it was just completely different than what the people would do. In fact, when we first started, one of our cook places was galvanized buckets, which worked very beautifully and when we get, like in our group of 78, used galvanized garbage cans for cooking, where we cook soup and anything we needed a big pot of.
I noticed you have a couple of very nice photographs there. Would you like to show them to the camera?
Well, yeah, sure. Back 5 years ago, I think it was 1995, Terry J. Hahn went down with me, and that was the second time he had gone down, and brought his photographer, Gary Edwards, along with him. And anyway, he wanted to go down and shoot pictures to show on television during the news segments. And so back 5 years, or in 1995, and also in 1990, he went down with me for the first time. Gary Edwards went down and shot pictures as we went down, and and we had a wonderful, put together a couple of wonderful videos of what happened on the river, and Terry is marvelous at doing things like that, and put together a couple of wonderful videos for me. They used up we were on for an entire week, and during that week they had segments both at 6 o'clock news and the 10 o'clock news, and so all together, put end to end, we had about 35 minutes of coverage for these rivers, and which was very nice because I had a few years before that I knew I was going to be doing this sometime, so I bought a video camera for myself that I took with me to try and shoot some remembering pictures. And I discovered when I wanted to be shooting pictures, I was busy rowing. So, but anyway, KGAN and Gary Edwards and Kerry J. Hahn went down with me and did that for me.
Did your wife ever go on these trips? May was her name?
May was her name, yes, And May went with me at least one trip a year. And she would come out. That's when our kids were small, at 2 and 3. They went with us, and normally they would take probably one trip a year. And when my kids got older, I wanted to stay out there, be out there long enough so that the kids could do it, and so I wanted to stay out there long enough so I could tell my boss that my kids are coming out to be boatmen for you this summer. And I did, and they did. One of them stayed for 7 years, and one stayed for 8 years. And they had a wonderful time, basically pretty much put themselves through college. On the picture I showed just a moment ago, this is my wife of today, Kay, and I married in 1990. But in 1889, I was out there on the river, and my wife May was out there, not on the river, but on back in Vernal, and she had a stroke and heart attack, and at that time lived through that. But I got her back to Cedar Rapids, but nevertheless, by getting her back to Cedar Rapids, she died about a month later. So anyway, I had very, very good fortune. I had 2 wonderful wives and 2 wonderful kids.
Did Kay have the same enjoyment of rafting?
Yes. In fact, I basically re-met Kay on the river. I took, back when her husband died in 95, I had taken a family picture of she and her husband's mother, Mrs. Shive, and I'd take on to her 85th birthday and take a picture, and Kay was there, and Jim was there, and her other kids were there, and very shortly after that, Jim died, and so I was very happy to get together with Kay 5 years later, and after she took the trip, 3 months and 10 days after the trip, we were married.
If you had your life to live over George, would you have done anything different?
Not that I can think of. I mean, I've enjoyed doing what I have done very much. I have basically done in my life what I wanted to do, not what I didn't put money as a goal. I didn't put these things as high goals. I managed to make a living fine. I've done the things I want to. I've taken the summers off. I have traveled. I've done boating. I've done photography. I've met a tremendous amount of wonderful people. I've got wonderful friends here in Cedar Rapids, and I'm still doing the things I want to do.
What's your next big project?
Right at this moment, I'm putting together another book on Cedar Rapids. It's on older Cedar Rapids, so consequently I'm working with the History Center, and in conjunction with them, they have a lot of the old pictures. I was not here back at the turn of the century, even though some people think I was. But anyway, I didn't come along until 1923. And so...
You're just a kid.
Yeah, right. And so anyway, most of my pictures were taken after World War II, and some of those will be in the book, but they want this book to be all before 1965, so I am somewhat limited on those pictures. But I'm having fun putting together and learning a little bit more about older Cedar Rapids.
What do you like best about Cedar Rapids?
Oh, I like the people. I like the I think one of the things I really like about Cedar Rapids is the ability to get from one place to another and get there without spending half your life going commuting and so forth, because I can get to almost any place in Cedar Rapids from here within 15 minutes. I can get the airport in 17 minutes. I get to Coe College in 4 minutes. So it's a matter of kind of living in the middle of town and enjoying it and be able to get from one place to the other easily. And of course, we've always had good city government. We've got wide streets that was laid out in the very early Cedar Rapids with wide streets so people can get from one place to the other. I think it's just overall, we've got entertainment here. We've got marvelous source of entertainment. If we want more, we can go to up in Iowa City. They've got it up there. We're big enough so we can buy anything that we like. It's just, as far as I'm concerned, it's a very fine place to live.
Is there anything you don't like about Cedar Rapids?
Not really. Maybe it's a little warm in the summertime sometime, and maybe the snow is a little deep in the wintertime, but no, I think Cedar Rapids is nice. It's a good place to live.
No, I think you pretty well covered it, unless George can think of anything else.
Do you know?
Do you have any grandchildren? We'll talk about his children and grandchildren. We'd like to make a copy.
Do you have grandchildren? Because you're going to be giving them a copy of this or leaving a copy of them with them, and you can talk about it.
Or your children, too.
I mean, you can see.
I'll bring up the two boys again and what they're doing and
that'd be good.
where they're living.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then anything else that you can think of? That's
In all your pictures,
anything that you would like them to know? Go ahead, Alan.
Well, I was just thinking, when you took some pictures, like, did you have any aerial pictures like Hunter Airport and like Mays Island? I'm sure you got a lot of downtown.
I've got, of course, after World War II, yeah. But before then, I mean, it was not a priority to get anything because I had no use to do it.
Well, on Union Station, when was that tore down?
The which?
Union Station. Is that in 60?
I don't know.
No, that was urban
60
renewal.
Someplace.
Yeah.
I think it's 60.
And I've got the dates over here.
But I mean, you probably had some pictures of the Union Station prior to it was torn down.
Basically, I had no reason to take
Yeah,
pictures.
that's what everybody is. Tearing it down. It was urban renewal. It was a good
Sure,
site
right,
to get rid of. It's sad now. We wish we had it.
Exactly right. And of course, Mark down there is documenting.
Yes.
And for the last 20 years, he's been documenting those places that would come down. And it will be very great to have those in the future years. I didn't do any of that unless somebody wanted me to document something, a building or a sign or a plot or some of that, but I would not go out on my own and do any of that.
Okay, let's go with the grandchildren. You mentioned, George, that you had two boys.
Yes.
Where are they today?
Well, I've been very fortunate. Both my kids have stayed around Cedar Rapids and were in Cedar Rapids for a long time. One of my boys still is at Rockwell, and he works with the computers out there. Actually has developed 3 patents with Rockwell, and so he is still there. And my other son is was originally orchestra director at Washington High School. And then he and his wife decided to go over to China and teach English as a second language, and they went over there for a couple of years, and we joined them at Christmas time after they'd been there for a year and a half. And then they came back, and his wife wanted to go into the ministry, so she went down to Dubuque and spent 4 years becoming a pastor. And Jerry got hired then as the orchestra director out at Linn. He did not expect that to happen, but it did happen. And so he is still there, and his wife went through and became a pastor and is down at the little church in Olin, Iowa. And one of the requirements that when she went there was that she be close enough to Cedar Rapids so that Jerry could still commute to his school at Linn, which has happened. And then, as I say, Kay's kids are right here. They're in Iowa City and Cedar Rapids also. So consequently, our entire family is right here in the area.
Did you have any grandchildren?
I have two wonderful grandchildren. They're by Jeff, Kestrel, and Khalees. They're marvelous kids, and
How old are they approximately?
thank you for the They're 8 and 12, I believe. They keep having one, just like we keep having birthdays, and it's hard to remember how old we are sometimes.
And does your other son have any?
He was not able to have any children.
Okay, your one boy that has the two children, does he have any desire to give them the same exposure to whitewater rafting as they had as a child?
No, I mean, they enjoyed whitewater rafting very much. As I say, they had several years, both of them, pretty much put themselves through college doing that. But they had to go on and make a living, and I just kind of took summers off and went out and did that. So
No, I meant, did they have any intentions of taking their children out there and exposing them?
Oh yes, sure, and that will happen. In fact, I took a trip last summer, but I decided that would be the last trip. If they had gone this summer, they would have gone with me. Yes, but they wanted to show them the things because it's something that they really enjoy doing.
Are you still taking photos for Cole College?
I still am. Yes, I just finished up doing commencement and alumni weekend. The phone call we got just a moment ago was wanting pictures from that. So consequently, yes, I'm still very actively engaged in shooting pictures for Cole.
You have led a very enjoyable and fulfilling life.
I certainly have.
And
I've been very lucky.
You've been blessed with health by looking at you too, that if anybody can be a boatman for 40 years.
So yes, I mean it's a wonderful thing to be able to do.
George, the Linn County Historical Society would like to thank you very much for sharing your memories with us. It's been truly enjoyable talking to you.
Well, it's certainly been a pleasure having both of you gentlemen be out here and being able to have been with you for an hour or so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, your kids will enjoy talking about them. I need this. This is